is. Okay, we are now recording. Welcome everyone to the quarterly teleconference. Willie, I'm going to turn it over to you to handle introduction.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ruth, and welcome everybody that's on the call today. I'm filling in for Karish, who's not able to join us today. We appreciate you taking the time to do this. Let's do the roll call. Can you just, Ruth, you're recording this, is that correct?
That is correct.
So why don't we just record, just give your name if you're on the phone, and then whether or not you can on the road or whatever. So just so we know where you are. But just go around and identify yourself, what state you're from, so Ruth can record that. I heard Kelvin first, but Kelvin, start with you.
Kelvin Leibold here in Iowa Falls, Iowa.
Thanks, Kelvin.
Jason Johnson in Stephenville, Texas.
Thanks, Jason.
And Ruth Hambleton.
And who else is on?
Gigi Neal, got you.
Gigi Neal, Ohio.
Desiree Steinberger, North Dakota.
Okay. Thanks. Okay.
Bethany Johnston, Nebraska Extension.
Okay. Welcome. Any others?
Claudette Roper, in case any of you wonder, I'm in Missouri.
Okay. Thanks, Claudette. You're just all over the place. Okay.
Lisa Scarborough, I'm in Ames, Iowa.
Okay.
Madeline.
Lisa. Any others?
Angela Kazakavicius was with us. I don't know if she's on yet. She may be on his phone. So I
already said it, Bruce.
Oh, Angela, I'm sorry I missed you. Okay, got you now.
Yep, I already signed in.
All right, Willie, I think that is the roll call at this point.
Okay, well, thank you for everybody joining in on this. Well, I'm assuming that you have received the Prezi that Ruth has sent. Did that go to everybody, Ruth?
Just to us as the committee here, so we will progress through it here.
Okay, great. Okay, well, welcome everybody. And what we're going to do today is kind of give a little bit of an update of different things, and then we're going to each have you share some things. First, we want to recognize Dr. Karish Delvin. Dr. Karish just received her PhD last week. She's been a very, very busy person with that, with her family and everything else, but she did announce that she did receive that, so we really want to congratulate her on that enormous effort. Her dissertation was really on the impact of Annie's project, and so I think it's very exciting. It was very I think it really gave evidence of the impact that this program's had across the nation. So it was really a great tribute to the program, and she did an enormous job on this. We really want to congratulate her. If you have not had the chance to email her yet, please do that, because it was an enormous effort for her to reach that status. The Bob Wells Award, do you want to have an update with that, Ruth?
Yes, we have a winner for the 2017 Bob Wells Award. It is going to Jennifer Boyles from South Carolina, so we congratulate her on receiving the award. She is the 4th year award, so very pleased to announce that Jennifer Boyle from South Carolina is the Bob Wells Award Memorial Award recipient.
Great. It's very great honor to receive, though. We really congratulate Jennifer on that accomplishment. There are just a lot of people who really make this program work around the country. She's done an enormous job with that. So congratulations to Jennifer. Oregon, do you want to just give an update with that, Ruth? Should I do that?
Go ahead. You did the training here just a couple days ago, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. Just a brief update. I had the honor of doing a training in Oregon last week, last Tuesday and Wednesday. There was it was Southwest Oregon, Baker City, Oregon, May 9th and 10th. We split the training over 2 days, 4 hours each day. It was a small group. There were 6 participants there. The 5 participants were from Oregon and 1 was from New Hampshire. It was a great discussion. A small group allows for a lot more discussion, which really was enjoyable. Very interactive, a lot of questions and answers. We really try to simulate the training a lot like an actual Annie's project takes place, so that we tried to do that. And I think at the end of the training, I think the people have really had a good grasp of the methodology of Annie's project. Only one person there had ever really participated in an Annie's project, and that was a participant from New Hampshire. Just a second. Excuse me, that was mine. I apologize for that. So she shared some insight in terms of the program, how it worked in New Hampshire as well. But it was really a good training session. We used the PowerPoint that the facilitators use for this, and it just generates a lot of great discussion. I think spreading it out over 2 days is really a good approach because it just gives people time to think a little bit about it. It really also allows a lot for better logistics of travel, both to the meeting and after the meeting. So the splitting the training up over 2 days, I think, works very well. At the end of the session, we really encourage the people that were there to start focusing on not what's in store for Oregon. So we spent about an hour and a half at the conclusion of the training, really getting started for putting their program together. They identified people they were going to serve on what they wanted to have their statewide steering committee. They identified some of the players that were involved, talk about some of the sponsors. So I think having that discussion immediately at the end of the training while it's fresh in the mind is really a good way for the state to start. But it was a great experience to conduct the training, and I felt that they really were ready to do a program in Oregon. I'm very confident that within a year we're going to have a program, Annie's project, in the state of Oregon as well. So that was very enjoyable. So I think that every training is kind of unique in its way. Every state has a little bit different approach from different leadership and different administrators and so forth. But in most of the states, the emphasis for the program really seems to be driven from the county, and that was the case in Oregon as well. The leader there, Letitia Henderson, is a county-based program. Her emphasis is livestock and range, but she had a colleague in South Dakota who was very involved in Annie's, so that was what motivated her to begin the process. So it was very encouraging to see that was really driven from the county. They were getting some of the state leadership involved in it as well. So it was a good program, and I was happy to be a part of it. So unless there's questions, that's really about what I want to say about the training. But it went well, and I think the training program, I think, really gets the states off to a good start, helps them get on the same page. Really, knowing the methodology behind Annie's project and how they want to shape it, and what players they really want to bring in to help them launch the program. So that was the case at the end of the training in Oregon. So it went very well. I want to say also that Claudette was very helpful in the backdrop doing a lot of the things behind the scenes for coordinated for both the participants and myself to have all the things of the training come together. So we really want to thank Claudette also for her role in making these trainings happen as well. So great team effort.
All right, thank you for that report then, Willie. I'll go ahead and talk the next point. The USDA risk management partnerships have now been announced. If you're not familiar with this, it's very much like the North Central or the Risk Management Education Centers, but this one is coming through the Risk Management Agency. And the deadline for applications on this one is July 10th. So if anyone wants to put your thinking cap on, we'll send the link out to the state coordinators and the facilitators who are on the call with us here today, that if you haven't already seen the link, to click on it and read through the request for proposal. If you get some ideas churning, give us a holler back and we'll see if we can't set something up on this one. So let's see, Claudette, I'm going to have you talk about the website update that's going to happen on Memorial Day.
Well, that's about all that I know. It's something that we do have to do to be able to keep it functioning properly, and it will be later in the day on Memorial Day. We assume that that is when most folks probably would not need it, and it's expected to be only down for a few hours. You know, my concern is always after something has been done, sometimes things change. So if you find something's not working like it should, or you're not finding a file that you really thought should be there, please let me know and I'll get on it right away.
Okay, thank you, Claudette. We also have to announce that we now have 20 trainers in 15 states. They went through training certification at the end of March in Columbus, Ohio. We were hosted by Nationwide. A number of you were there. So Gigi, I know you're on the line with us and you're one of our certified trainers now. So thank you all who attended that, and that list will be available if you want to know who else is on it.
And just for clarification, since we use the term training a lot, these are people who are now qualified to train facilitators to do Annie's project.
Okay, thank you. This next topic concerns the Farm Service Borrow Training and Annie's project involvement with that. If you're not familiar with the Farm Service Borrowing Training Program, it comes out of the 1991 Farm Bill that was trying to address the issue of a huge default on government loans to agriculture enterprises at that time. And so the training for financial management was actually written into the Farm Bill. Now, the FSA training takes place state by state. It is up to the states to contract with the different providers for the education. So, for example, Annie's project right now, we are contracted with the state of Montana. We are contracted with the states of Delaware and Maryland to do that training financial management certification that allows these people who are borrowing Farm Service Agency funds to continue receiving that funding. So question we have for you is, are we contracted with your state's FSA? If you didn't hear your name, then obviously you are not. If you would be interested in having Annie's project as an option, and how we do it is the women go through your regular Annie's project, and then if they need additional, or if they need the certification for an additional $100, I enroll them in our certification program. They take a review, they take a test, and I certify that they are qualified to take Farm Service Agency funds and meet that educational requirement. In order for me to be able to do that in your state, I do have to go through an application process with your state. So as I said, if you are interested in providing that extra service beyond an Annie's Project class, again, contact me or Claudette, and we'll see if we can't work on that little project. Any questions about the FSA borrower training and what goes on in your state?
Ruth, could you clarify kind of the time frame of that training?
The training. Yeah, it's a self-study. I send the materials directly to the homes of those people who are enrolled in it. Basically, the only pressure deadline that they feel is the one that is imposed by FSA that says within a year or two of borrowing money, they have to go through this program. If they don't go through the program, they're denied funding for the next time they come in to get money. So does that answer your question, Willie?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Ruth.
While we're talking about that, rather than just asking if anybody has questions, I would be curious. I have a question. How many people on the call know how it works in their state, or maybe know who is already contracted with their state. That might be helpful information for us.
Claudette, in Iowa, the farm management, Tim Eggers, we've got a program for the state of Iowa.
And that is an online course that Tim manages. Is that correct, Calvin?
It can be online or it can be paper. It's fairly rigorous, quite frankly. The other thing to keep in mind is that many of the borrowers with FSA are given waivers, so they don't have to take the class.
Okay, other questions or comments on this topic? We will be occasionally contacting you back and forth about this as we explore ways to either expand the program. So just kind of introduce you to the topic today, and we'll move on to the next topic then, which this is curriculum to know about. We have online with us here Bethany Johnson. She's a beef educator with the University of Nebraska at Lincoln, and her program is called Financial Literacy. Bethany, I'm going to switch and make you the presenter, so if you give me just a minute here. Okay, Bethany, you are now the presenter.
All right, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, very well.
Okay. So Ruth wanted me to talk about the program that we developed with her called Financial Literacy, Two Hands on the Wheel. And when you think about having two hands on the wheel when you're driving, the one hand is kind of your financials, and the other hand is what you do with those financials. So when we start having downturns in the market, that becomes really important for farmers and ranchers to make those kinds of decisions. So Jessica and I presented this at the ERMI conference in Cincinnati. And so Jessica wasn't able to make it today, but I'll go ahead and do her part. So this is a website we developed. If you guys want to write this down, it's go.unl.edu/two-hands-on-the-wheel. And it has everything you need to teach this financial literacy series. So I will repeat that website at the end, but that website is a great place to get started. So just a little bit about Jessica. She lives in Scottsbluff and farms with her husband there. And so in Scottsbluff, I think they maybe get, 15 inches of rain there. And so they do a lot of dry beans and different things like that. But I like to joke that she's the farmer of the two of us. So if you guys have farm questions, I probably won't answer them because this is where I live. I live in the Sandhills of Nebraska. And when our great-grandparents got here, it was just blowing sand. And so we're really proud of our ranchers for making, developing the grazing systems and the grasslands. So we have now stabilized dunes. And so in the Sandhills, farm is actually a 4-letter F word, so we try not to talk about it because we don't get the precipitation, and once you get wind, it's just gone. So this is my family, my husband Joel and our daughter Jordy, and picture's a little outdated. Jordy's 6 now and just finished kindergarten, so probably need to update that. But just to talk a little bit about my family and why we asked Ruth to do this. My parents got married in '75, and then when they got married, they moved back to the family ranch, and in the '70s, what was going on? Everybody was talking about these prices are a new plateau. They're never going to go down. They're going to stay this way forever. And then the 80s hit. And so in the 80s, my parents had their house burned down. They had 2 children diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and they had bankruptcy. My grandparents did. They kept the ground, but they had to sell all the cows to my parents. And so there's a lot of hard financial things that were going on. And looking back, you could really see that financial stress that was happening. So if you fast forward a little bit to 98, I went to UNL and took my first Ag Econ class, Ag Econ 141. And it was my first and last Ag Econ class. So I did not enjoy it, but I did very well with it. The numbers I could handle, the economic part of it, not so much. So when I talked to Ruth, this is, you know, in the 2013, 2014, what was happening again? We hit that, corn farmers maybe a little bit sooner, but again, we were hitting that. We've reached a new plateau on prices. You know, this is how prices are going to be. And so when I talked to Ruth in 2016, we went about and developed this program. So just a little bit about myself. I actually work for Nebraska Extension. So we are north of North Platte, Nebraska. And when I started working for Extension, we don't have a farm management team. And I would go to my Ag Econ people and I said, you know, I want to have a program that we can help ranchers use their numbers. I mean, everybody keeps them for taxes, but nobody was really using their numbers for anything else. And so one of the specialists that I talked to, he goes, oh, Bethany, what do you want, a spreadsheet? And I think our ranchers are the same way as a student on here. But I did not want a spreadsheet. They're usually too complicated. If you're just starting out and you put numbers in wrong, it can give you a really hard or bad answer. And so when I worked with Ruth, we wanted to develop a program that was real simple. So I keep my books for taxes, and the period that we were going into, now we're starting to get some feedback from the lenders. And so, you know, what do those numbers mean? And what we're really hoping is that eventually they'll use those for management decisions. So the financial literacy workshops, we actually started these when corn prices were starting to come down, but we still had $3 calves in the beef sector. And we kept hearing that the prices are never going to go down, never going to go down. And so to me, this was a perfect time to start planning that. So we did that. We developed some curriculum that's just very basic. And some of our coworkers thought it was too basic, but we looked at the evaluations and we'll show you those results later. The other thing to think about is the 1980s. We're probably not in the 80s, but there's some similarities. So who's keeping the books? It's probably the farm wife. We also now have a lot of people retiring in Nebraska Extension. And in the 80s, they were the ones that were actually helping farmers and ranchers through those really tough times. So now we have a brand new group coming in that maybe hasn't ever been through a down cycle and is now having to teach people through that. The other part that I thought was interesting is just the individual crisis. So if you feel like you are in a financial crisis, that's devastating. And something I learned from Ruth is she said in the 80s when they did these programs, a lot of people were not in that bad of financial shape. So just think about if you are, you know, afraid you're going to go into bankruptcy, you're not sleeping at night, and then if you're able to look at your numbers and find out you're okay, just what that peace of mind is worth. The other thing is if you are in a financial crisis, what can you do to either get out of that or some steps you can take? So that's why we started this program. And our big goal was to help those women bookkeepers be confident enough that they could understand it, and not only understand it for their financials, but also be able to communicate that with your spouse and your lender. So not just be good enough to know it, but be good enough to teach it and share it. The other thing we hoped is that they would kind of catch the bug or take that hook and be excited about doing some of these financials for their farm or ranch. So like many of you know, with Annie's, women learn differently, and that's one of the reasons that we were excited to have Ruth help us with this curriculum. So we used a lot of the same setup that you guys use in Annie's project, the small groups, learning from others in the room, and then we also added the flipped classroom. So what the flipped classroom is in a traditional lecture style. You go listen to the lecture, you get done, and you leave with questions. And so with the flipped classroom, we actually have them watch videos about that topic, so when they come to the class that they have their questions ready to go. So they're not leaving with their questions, they're showing up with their questions. Another thing that we wanted to do is to moderate the discussion and lead that discussion in a way that they're learning from each other, and we're not just the expert at the front of the room telling them how they should do things. And I think in Annie's, that's a similar trait that we have. So we worked with Ruth back in May of 2016, and she said, let's be proactive about this, let's get this out. And so Ruth developed a really nice teacher's handbook, and that is up on the website. And there's 3 classes for 6 hours, total 2 hours each. And we just started with a real basic, what is a balance sheet? What does it tell you? And so most people fill those out with their bankers, but wouldn't it be nice if you actually could do one yourself and know what you're trying to measure with those? The second class is cash flow. So we're starting to get a lot of lenders that want that cash flow. And so we talk about that. And then the last one is income statement. So did we make a profit by being able to compare those 2 balance sheets? We also have videos that they watch, and it's the videos off of the Center for Farm Management. And so we have them watch those videos before they come to class. So that way, if they have questions, they can bring those with them. We also use the feedback part of the project. So what did you learn? What do you want to learn? And there's some really good activities in there that we have for them. And as we've been doing this more and more, I think we're coming up with more activities for them to do. And so those are all within that teacher's manual. The other thing we did for Nebraska is we actually came up with a list of resources in our state. So not only the Nebraska Farm Crisis Hotline that has the counseling and the financial one-on-one and the mediation, but also where do you get food stamps? Where do you get insurance for your kids if you can't afford it? Some of those things that a lot of our farmers and ranchers haven't had to worry about for a long time. So this curriculum is set up really nice. Ruth did a really nice job. And if you read through that teacher's manual, it's going to tell you everything that you need to do and every step that you need to take. And so it's a really nice setup. So again, this is where you can find that curriculum, all the handouts, the activities. And then Jessica also set up, I believe on Qualtrics, the pre and post evaluation. So if you have them put in the date and the location, she will summarize those results and email them to you if you contact her. So that's a really nice kind of icing on the cake that you can use to report back to your organization on what you did. So again, it's go.unl.edu/2handsonthewheel. And so that website has everything that you should need on there. And if there's anything that you're missing that you'd like us to put up, let us know and we'll try to do that. So we kind of did a trial run this year. And so Jessica and some others hosted locations across the state. So there's 8 locations, 32 participants. But you can see there was people that had a lot of acres and a lot of cattle there. And so we might not have had a lot as far as numbers, but they sure were the bigger farms that were coming. And so you can see we asked them So after the workshop, how do you feel your financial standing was? And most of them were in good to very good shape, so about 70%. The other third was fair to poor or unsure. And so, you know, we kind of had a whole range of people that were coming to the workshop. And we were worried at first that it was too basic, but 100% of the participants said that they would recommend it to the workshop to others. And 97 said that the material was about right for them. So we were happy that we hit that goal and kind of taught them to their level. So these are just some things that they hope to learn in the workshop. And so these were ones that they just wrote out. And so you can see they hope to learn about financials. They wanted to be better at them. They wanted to be able to understand them. And so that was kind of our goal. And so we're glad that they put that on there. These are things that they actually learned and felt comfortable with. So we wanted them to be more confident when they went to present these either to their spouse or their banker. And so a 1 is very uncomfortable, a 2 is, or I'm sorry, 1 is very unconfident, 2 unconfident, and then 3 and 4 were getting more confident. So you can see most of them were maybe confident to unconfident. And then after the workshop, we go through here, you can see the change in that. So everybody felt that they had an increase in that. But even the ones that they thought they were very good at, so like balance sheet, you can see they were at a 3, a confident before, but just how much more confident they got in those. And so we were happy with those results that we had from them. And so this is the most important thing that they learned in the workshop. And again, they wrote these out. So balance sheet, even though they were pretty confident in that already, that was an important thing that they learned. Cash flow, ratios, the financials, you can see that those were kind of the big ones that they referred to. And then how are you going to use this in your operation? You know, use those financials better, get some records. Quicken was in there because we actually teach some Quicken workshops and we used Quicken for some of the demonstrations. And so you can see that what they learned is hopefully what they're going to be able to use. So some of the challenges that we had, just getting people to know what the workshop was about was probably a big thing to get them there. So we've thought about changing the name to maybe a financial checkup or something like that, farm checkup, health checkup, to get them there. So Jessica says finance is not sexy. And so, you know, is there a way that we can bring people in without saying, hey, you know, this is a group that if you're in financial trouble, you don't want to go to a workshop for someone that's in dire straits, because, you know, there's just kind of a bad vibe that goes with that, and you might not want to go to that. So keeping these positive, being able to explain to them what's going on. The other problem we have in Western Nebraska is some of our participants are driving 40 to 100 miles one way to get there. And so we did host some one-day workshops that were 6 hours long, which was a long day for them, but they didn't have to drive back and forth to those 3 nights. And so if you're in an area that's a little bit more sparsely populated, maybe having that one-day workshop versus the 3 nights would work better. The other thing that we ran into is we just have a lot of young educators coming on board. A lot of our more seasoned educators are retiring. And so getting them confident in actually teaching it is tough. And then the other thing is we needed to have this before the decline. And we kind of had it right when it was going down for the cattle cycle anyway. And so getting people and educators taught on how to teach this class before we need it was kind of a struggle too. And again, we just like to get those client numbers up in the workshops. So with that, does anybody have any questions? We kind of went through that pretty fast, but Ruth has done a really nice job with the teacher's manual. And like I said, if you can read through that, read some of the activities, it's all spelled out, and you don't even have to be the expert in the room, which is nice for me. I'm not an ag econ or finance specialist, but I think this is important for our bookkeepers, not only the ones that maybe are in financial trouble, but the ones that aren't and just need to run their numbers and see that they're in okay shape.
Are there questions
Any
for Bethany?
questions?
Bethany, this is Doris Mold.
Hi, Doris.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate and I appreciate what you're doing out there. You know, when you look at the scores that do you think people were responding honestly on their scores as far as you know, I guess, you know, kind of where they were at? Did you get a feel that I guess from the beginning to the end, do you think people had a really good understanding for where they were truly at based on the people that were in the rooms? Or did you think that they were maybe guessing at their level of expertise?
Yeah, so on that self-assessed financial standing, that's just where they thought they were.
Okay.
And so if it was the one-day workshop, they probably didn't have time to go back and run those. But if it was the 3 classes, then maybe they had done their balance sheet and some of their cash flow before they answered that question.
Okay.
But it wasn't they had ran any numbers, just where do you think you are or your operation is on that.
Sure. Okay. All right. I was just curious, but I think certainly anything that we can do to help people feel more confident and have a better understanding. I think even when you start to get into trouble, if you have an understanding of how much trouble you're in, that reduces your anxiety level.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing we don't think about is, I've seen a lot of people that the reason they were able to buy land or buy cows is because they knew their financial standing when things got tough. And so they knew this was a good deal and the market's going to go up in so many years. And so to me, even just thinking of this as an opportunity. So if I know my numbers and if I know where I'm at, maybe that's the time that I'm able to make some of those bigger purchases.
Well, and I always like to deal with the positive myself, and so turning that into a positive sometimes, well, I think most of us prefer the positive, but equipping them to be able to use this information, whether it's tough times or good times, but now the tough times tend to drive people kind of the come to Jesus moment that I finally need to get a handle on this.
Yeah. And so we've coupled this with some programs. So we do some training with Quicken Deluxe on financials, and then the financial literacy is kind of the next step. And then we have some unit cost of production. And so we're trying to build kind of this cycle or just different levels of classes so they can kind of start with one and then go to the next one. So that's what we're hoping, or what we found is we started with farm literacy. We went to Quicken, we went to unit cost of production, and so we're kind of developing where these holes are in them.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
This is Willie Hewitt. I just looked at the great program. I have 3 basic questions. Number 1, did you see any kind of a sense of an age range of your participants as you did this in the locations across the state?
And I would have to ask Jessica. I was going to host one, and mine, we didn't have enough participants. But just talking with Jessica, I think it was a little bit of everybody from big operations, small, young to maybe a little bit more seasoned. And so I think there was a definite age range there, because Jessica thought maybe it would just kind of be one group. And from what she said is it was, I guess, as diverse as we can get out here.
Okay. My next question, did you charge any fee for these courses?
Yeah, so for these courses, we had a training, and we trained 20 educators, and so we all charged the same. And so I think we charged $20 per class, just so we had it set across the state. So we charged a little bit, but it wasn't much.
Okay. And my last question, maybe you already alluded to this. What kind of preparation did you have the staff go through before they taught this?
Yeah, so we actually had Ruth talk through the classes.
Okay.
And we do have that video if you want to see it. But I think personally, if you go through and go look at that teacher's manual and go through it, it's pretty self-explanatory. And the other thing that we did is we had 3 or 4 of us get together. And so I took balance sheet, Jay took cash flow, Jessica took income statements. And then we actually pretended like we were teaching it to each other over Zoom. And so that way we got the PowerPoint, how we would, if there's anything we wanted to change on that. I think Jessica, with the balance sheet, she ended up using sticky notes and just making a big X on the wall, and had the participants put them up there. And so it really helped us to go through that like we were teaching it, because then if people had questions, they could ask us, but it was within a safe group. So I would say if you have people that are new teaching it, if you can kind of get with a group of 2 or 3, facilitators, and go over that, it really does seem to help.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. And the one thing I didn't point out is we had them watch those videos before. So we did send them emails about a week before and said, please watch these videos before you come. And then when I was going to host, I was going to have half an hour before, that if they didn't have time to watch it at home, they could come in and watch it right before class too. So you kind of start that communication early.
Great. Are there any more questions, Bethany, on this?
Yep, and Ruth pulled up the web page, so it's pretty easy. There's the teacher's handbook, the PowerPoints for the classes, the handouts that we used. There's a video there that we borrowed from Alberta Ag that's real good about talking about those 3 different ones. And so you can kind of see on there what those are. And Ruth wanted me to point out the picture. That's actually my husband. I kidnapped him to take pictures, and he goes, "What are we doing?" I said, "You don't need to know." Because I said, if I'm going to tell him he's going to be used for national curriculum, he's never going to go for it. So I stole him for a few minutes before he had to go AI and got some pictures of 2 hands on the wheel. So.
Thank you very much. Well, the remaining time is now we would like to hear from you from other states. What's happening in your program since our last conference call? So there's no particular system for this, but why don't you just go around and maybe identify yourself and share what's happening in your state with Annie's project, or a question that you may have regarding anything that's been discussed today. And who would like to start that?
Lisa, do you want to talk about Iowa, or do you want me to?
Go ahead, Kelvin.
Well, right now we're involved with some agronomy in the field. So we're doing, we've got at least three area agronomists, women that are out doing programs for ladies talking about the growing season. And so we've got an agronomy class that we're starting. We've been doing some stuff on beef cattle. We've finished up this winter with a series on grain marketing. I had a couple of those programs on grain marketing, and then we did another one this winter on farm finance. So we've got lots of different programs. You can go to the Women in Ag website at Iowa State and get a feel for the programs that we've been involved with.
Okay. Thanks, Kelvin. Any questions for Kelvin? Great. What are the states?
It's a pretty quiet group, Willie, so I guess what we will do at this time is just remind people that we did record the session, that it will be up on our YouTube, that Claudette will send the link out here shortly after we get done with our session today, and people can view our quarterly teleconference. So, Willie, I want to thank you for moderating, and for the board members who attended here, Jason, Calvin, Doris, you're on the committee, and really appreciate the work that has been done in Nebraska, particularly Bethany. Just excellent job. So with that, I will.
Ruth?
Yes, go ahead, Claudette.
Quick clarification. I know you folks don't need one more email in your inbox. What I will do is I will post it to the facilitator pages of the website where the others are. That way, just whenever you decide you want to go look at it, you don't have to find that email again. Just go to the facilitator pages of the website, and that's where I'll have it.
Excellent.
Okay.
All right. Well,
Thank you, Claudette.
with that, I think we'll go ahead and.
Ruth, maybe Jason and Doris, Claudette, Willie, and you and I could stay on for just a few minutes and talk about a couple topics.
We can do that. So I will sign off and say thank you all. We're going to stop the recording. And thank you for attending the quarterly teleconference. This is Ruth Hamilton, the president of the Annie's Project Education for Farm Women.